What do you do when no one believes in you, no mentor, no family backing, no applause, no safety net? Just silence. Most men collapse in this phase, not because they lack talent, but because they lack witnesses. Tonight, we solve a brutal problem. How do you rise when you stand completely alone? In the shadows of history, power was never given to the supported. It was taken by the isolated. The prince was not written for the loved. It was written for the abandoned. Because a man without support learns a dangerous lesson, he has nothing to lose. And when a man has nothing to lose, he becomes unstoppable. Listen carefully. What if the very thing you fear is the source of your dominance, isolation? Most men experience isolation as rejection. They interpret it as proof that they are unwanted, unseen, unsupported. And because they interpret it emotionally, they react emotionally. They shrink, they complain, they search desperately for alliances just to soothe the discomfort of standing alone. But you are not here for comfort. You are here for power, and power begins where dependence ends. In the prince, the underlying principle is clear. A ruler who depends too heavily on mercenaries, allies, or borrowed strength is weak. His authority is conditional. His throne is temporary. His survival is tied to the loyalty of others. Now, translate that into your life. When you depend on support, your confidence becomes conditional. Your ambition becomes negotiable. Your decisions become influenced by the expectations of those standing behind you. Support is rarely free. It carries invisible contracts. When someone supports you, they believe they have earned influence over you. They feel entitled to advice, to direction, to correction, to involvement, and slowly, without realizing it, your path becomes a committee decision. Isolation removes the committee. When no one stands behind you, no one votes on your future. There is a psychological shift that occurs when you understand this. At first, being alone feels like vulnerability. You feel exposed. You feel uncertain. You question yourself more intensely because there is no external reassurance to stabilize you. But this is not weakness. This is recalibration. When you stand alone, you are forced to confront yourself without distraction. No applause to inflate you, no criticism to distract you, no expectations to shape you, just you. And most men avoid this moment because it reveals their insecurities. It exposes the fragile parts they used to hide behind validation. But if you endure it, something powerful happens. You stop performing. You stop adjusting your personality to gain approval. You stop softening your opinions to maintain harmony. You stop chasing opportunities just because they impress others. You begin choosing based on strategy, not sentiment. Isolation removes social pressure, and without social pressure, clarity emerges. You begin to see who you truly are when no one is watching. You begin to see what you truly want when no one is influencing, and this is where power begins to crystallize. Because a man who owes nothing fears nothing. When you have no support, you also have no emotional debts. No one can say, after everything I've done for you, no one can withdraw encouragement as a form of control. No one can threaten abandonment to manipulate your behavior. You are already alone. What can they take from you? Nothing. And when nothing can be taken from you, you become difficult to control. Understand this carefully. Society is built on invisible dependence. People bond through mutual need. They trade loyalty for security. They exchange approval for belonging. And there is nothing inherently wrong with connection. But connection becomes dangerous when it replaces autonomy. Isolation forces autonomy. When no one supports you, you learn to generate your own motivation. You learn to solve your own problems. You learn to endure doubt without outsourcing reassurance. You develop internal authority. Internal authority is rare. Most men require external structure to function, a boss to direct them, a partner to validate them, a friend to push them, a crowd to applaud them. Remove those things and they collapse, but you are not collapsing. You are adapting. You begin to make decisions without consulting 5 opinions. You begin to move without announcing your intentions. You begin to execute without seeking permission. This quiet independence is unsettling to others because it signals something dangerous. You are not programmable. Isolation also sharpens observation. When you are not embedded in a circle of constant conversation, you begin to watch more than you speak. You analyze dynamics, you notice patterns, you study power structures without being emotionally entangled in them. The supported are often distracted by loyalty, the isolated are guided by strategy. When you are alone, you are free to pivot, free to withdraw, free to reinvent. There is no social identity trapping you in consistency. You are not obligated to remain the version of yourself that others are comfortable with. You can evolve without negotiation, and evolution without negotiation is strength. There is another layer most people never consider. When no one supports you, your success becomes entirely yours. There is no shared credit, no shared narrative, no one who can later claim they built you. Every skill you develop is self-forged. Every discipline you build is self-enforced. Every breakthrough is self-earned. That creates a different kind of confidence, not loud confidence, not arrogant confidence, unshakable confidence, because it is rooted in evidence. You survived without backup. You progressed without applause. You improved without guidance. That knowledge changes how you carry yourself. It alters your posture. It alters your tone. It alters your tolerance for nonsense. You stop fearing isolation because you have already endured it. And when a man no longer fears being alone, he becomes extremely difficult to intimidate. Isolation is not the absence of support. It is the removal of dependency. And when dependency dissolves, sovereignty begins. Not emotional sovereignty, strategic sovereignty, the ability to move through the world without being emotionally hostage to approval, recognition, or collective belief. Most men beg for support because they think it guarantees success. But history shows something different. Support creates comfort. Isolation creates capability. Comfort feels safe. Capability is power, and power has never required witnesses. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Why do you really want support? Is it guidance you seek or reassurance? Because these are not the same thing. Guidance sharpens you, reassurance soothes you, and most men are not searching for direction. They are searching for emotional stabilization. They want someone to look at them and say, "You're doing fine, I believe in you, keep going." But what happens when no one says it? This is where emotional self-sufficiency is born. In The Prince, power is never described as emotional. It is described as strategic. A ruler who depends on affection alone will fall the moment affection fades. A ruler who depends on fear alone will face rebellion. The wise ruler depends on neither emotion nor applause. He depends on calculation. Translate this into your inner world. If your motivation depends on praise, you are controlled by praise. If your confidence depends on approval, you are owned by approval. If your peace depends on being understood, you are hostage to interpretation. Emotional dependency is subtle. It hides behind phrases like "I just want support" or "I need someone in my corner." But often what that really means is, "I need someone to regulate my emotions for me." And that is dangerous. Because the world is unstable, people change, loyalty shifts, circumstances collapse, relationships evolve. And if your emotional stability is outsourced, every shift in your environment shakes your foundation. Emotional self-sufficiency means you become your own regulator. When you doubt yourself, you correct yourself. When you feel fear, you analyze it. When you feel rejected, you process it, not project it. Most men react to emotion. Few men govern it. The unsupported man has an advantage here. No one is coming to calm him down. No one is coming to restore his confidence. No one is coming to tell him that everything will work out, so he learns to do it alone. At first, this feels heavy. The silence amplifies your insecurities. Without someone affirming you, your inner critic becomes louder. You question your path, you question your worth, you question your decisions. This is the test. Do you collapse into self-pity? Or do you build internal authority? Emotional self-sufficiency is not about suppressing feelings. It is about mastering them. You feel doubt, but you do not obey it. You feel loneliness, but you do not let it dictate your standards. You feel fear, but you still execute. You stop looking for someone to emotionally carry you through difficulty. You carry yourself. There is a dangerous habit many men develop, explaining themselves in hopes of being understood. They believe that if others could just see their vision, the support would come, so they talk, they defend. They justify, but the powerful move differently. They do not need to be understood to proceed, because their conviction is internal. When you become emotionally self-sufficient, your energy changes. You no longer argue to convince. You no longer chase to validate. You no longer overshare to feel connected. You become measured, calm, deliberate. People may misinterpret this as coldness. But it is not coldness, it is containment. Your emotions no longer leak into every interaction. You choose when to reveal. You choose when to react. You choose when to remain silent. And this control unsettles people, because emotionally dependent individuals are predictable. Compliment them and they soften. Criticize them and they crumble. Withdraw attention and they chase. But the emotionally self-sufficient man does not chase attention. He evaluates it. He does not fear criticism. He extracts information from it. He does not collapse under silence. He operates within it. This is why succeeding with zero support requires emotional self-sufficiency. If you are alone and emotionally dependent, the isolation will destroy you. You will interpret every setback as proof that you are unworthy. You will interpret every delay as confirmation that others were right to doubt you. But if you are emotionally self-sufficient, isolation becomes training. You learn to validate yourself through action, not applause. You build confidence from competence, not compliments. You derive stability from discipline, not discussion, and slowly something shifts inside you. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop broadcasting your struggles in hopes of sympathy. You stop adjusting your ambition to make others comfortable. Instead, you operate with quiet certainty, not because someone told you that you are capable, but because you have evidence. You have endured discomfort without collapsing. You have faced doubt without retreating. You have continued without witnesses. That internal dialogue becomes stronger than any external voice. Another transformation occurs. You become less reactive. When someone withdraws support, it does not destabilize you. When someone questions you, it does not provoke defensiveness. When someone misunderstands you, it does not ignite urgency to correct them. You remain composed because your identity is not constructed from their perception. It is constructed from your principles. Emotional self-sufficiency also forces accountability. You cannot blame lack of encouragement for lack of progress. You cannot point to absence of support as the reason you stopped. The responsibility is entirely yours. And that realization is empowering, because if the responsibility is yours, so is the power. You begin to realize that the strongest position is not being surrounded by believers. It is being internally certain, certainty that does not fluctuate with mood, certainty that does not dissolve with criticism, certainty that does not inflate with praise. This is emotional sovereignty, a state where your internal climate is self-governed, where your ambition does not depend on mood, where your discipline does not depend on motivation, where your self-worth does not depend on attention. Most people never reach this state because they are constantly buffered by others. There is always someone to call, someone to comfort, someone to distract. But when you succeed with zero support, you are forced into confrontation with yourself. And if you endure that confrontation without surrendering to emotional chaos, you emerge controlled, measured, strategic, and far more dangerous than a man who needs to be believed in before he believes in himself. When you have zero support, something unusual happens. You talk less, not because you have nothing to say, but because there is no one to impress, and in that silence a weapon is formed. Most men sabotage themselves with words. They reveal plans too early. They expose emotions too freely. They explain strategies to people who have not earned access to their thinking. They confuse expression with progress. But when you are alone, when there is no circle validating your ideas, no audience clapping for your ambition, you begin to understand a dangerous principle. The less you reveal, the more you control. In the prince, power is rarely loud. It does not rush to declare intentions. It observes, it calculates. It waits. A ruler who exposes his full strategy invites resistance. A ruler who moves unpredictably maintains advantage. Apply this to your life. When you succeed without support, you cannot afford to leak your intentions. There is no protective network shielding you from backlash. There is no alliance absorbing your mistakes. Every move you make carries weight. Every miscalculation is yours alone. So you learn restraint. Strategic silence is not insecurity. It is discipline. You stop announcing goals to feel motivated. You stop sharing ideas just to feel seen. You stop explaining your next step to people who do not contribute to your direction. You begin to move quietly. And something interesting happens in quiet movement. You start seeing more. When you are not busy talking, you are observing. You notice who interrupts others. You notice who seeks validation in every conversation. You notice who shifts loyalty depending on advantage. You notice who only supports what benefits them. Observation reveals hierarchy. It reveals insecurity. It reveals hidden motives. Most people miss these details because they are too busy performing. They want to be liked. They want to be heard. They want to appear intelligent, so they fill silence with noise. But silence is not empty. Silence is information. When you say less, others say more. They reveal their fears, their ambitions, their weaknesses, their contradictions. People are uncomfortable with silence, so they rush to fill it. And in doing so, they expose themselves. The unsupported man has a unique advantage here. He is already accustomed to silence. He does not fear it. He does not rush to escape it. So he listens, and listening sharpens strategy. Imagine entering a room where you have no allies, no one advocating for you, no one amplifying your presence. If you attempt to dominate that room with loud declarations, you will be challenged. If you attempt to seek approval, you will appear dependent. But if you observe first, you map the terrain. You identify influence patterns. You see who others defer to. You recognize who feels threatened by competence. You sense who is insecure behind confidence. This is power without announcement. Strategic silence also protects you from premature resistance. Many people do not oppose you because of your current position. They oppose you because of what they sense you might become. If you reveal too much ambition too early, you awaken competition before you are ready to handle it. Quiet growth avoids unnecessary enemies. When no one supports you, you cannot afford unnecessary enemies. So you move in layers, you build skill without advertising it, you increase discipline without broadcasting it. You study dynamics without commenting on them. This creates unpredictability, and unpredictability is leverage. If people cannot fully read you, they cannot easily manipulate you. If they do not know your timeline, they cannot disrupt it. If they do not know your intentions, they cannot counter them. Most manipulation works through emotional reaction. Someone criticizes you to provoke defense. Someone ignores you to provoke pursuit. Someone praises you to provoke attachment. But when you operate from strategic silence, you do not react immediately. You assess. You ask yourself, why was that said? Why now? What is the benefit for them? Observation transforms interaction into analysis. You stop taking things personally. You start taking notes mentally, and over time, you build an internal database of human behavior. This is how influence is mastered, not through loud dominance, but through quiet comprehension. There is another layer to this. When you are unsupported, you realize that words are expensive. Every promise must be fulfilled. Every claim must be proven. There is no team covering for you, no reputation cushioning your errors. So you become precise. You speak only what you intend to execute. You commit only where you can deliver. You do not exaggerate your capabilities to gain temporary admiration. Because you understand something crucial, reputation built on silence and results is stronger than reputation built on noise and charm. Over time, people begin to sense something different about you. You are not easily read. You are not easily provoked. You are not easily impressed. You do not overshare your struggles to gain sympathy. You do not reveal your strengths to gain attention. You conserve information, and information is power. Silence also trains emotional control. When you resist the urge to defend yourself instantly, you strengthen restraint. When you resist the urge to correct every misunderstanding, you strengthen composure. When you resist the urge to prove yourself constantly, you strengthen confidence. The world respects what it cannot fully access. Accessibility creates familiarity. Mystery creates intrigue. Strategic silence does not mean isolation from communication. It means intentional communication. You choose when to speak. You choose what to reveal. You choose who earns access to your vision. And because you are succeeding without support, this selectiveness becomes essential. Not everyone deserves insight into your direction. Not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. Not everyone deserves explanation. The more alone you are, the more valuable your inner world becomes. So you guard it. You study before you trust. You observe before you align. You calculate before you commit. And while others are distracted by conversation, you are analyzing patterns. While others are reacting emotionally, you are tracking behavior. While others are announcing intentions, you are executing quietly. Silence sharpens perception. Observation sharpens strategy. And strategy, when paired with independence, creates a presence that does not need to declare itself to be felt when there is no support, no guidance, no applause, no one checking your progress. There is only one force that determines whether you rise or disappear: discipline, not motivation, not inspiration. Discipline. Most people perform well when they are watched. They work harder when someone expects results. They stay consistent when accountability exists. Remove the audience, remove the pressure, remove the encouragement, and their effort fades. This is the hidden danger of having zero support. No one is monitoring you. No one is correcting you. No one is pushing you when you slow down, which means your success becomes a private negotiation between you and your weaknesses. And weakness negotiates well. It whispers that you deserve rest. It suggests that delay is harmless. It rationalizes inconsistency. It convinces you that without support, progress is pointless. This is where most men collapse. They mistake loneliness for permission to underperform. But if you study power carefully, you will notice something different. In The Prince, leadership is not sustained by emotion. It is sustained by structure. A ruler who lacks internal order creates external chaos. A ruler who cannot govern himself cannot govern anything else. Translate that inward. If you cannot govern your habits, you cannot govern your future. When you succeed with zero support, you must become your own authority, your own commander, your own enforcer. You wake up not because someone expects you to, but because you decided you would. You work not because someone is supervising you, but because your standard demands it. You continue not because you feel inspired, but because stopping would violate your own code. This is self-discipline at its most refined level. It is not dramatic, it is repetitive, it is not emotional, it is mechanical, relentless self-discipline means you remove the question of "do I feel like it?" from your vocabulary. Feelings fluctuate, energy shifts, confidence rises and falls, but discipline remains constant. The unsupported man cannot rely on emotional momentum. He does not have cheering voices to reignite his drive. He does not have encouragement cushioning his failures. So he builds routine. Routine becomes armor. When you repeat actions daily, regardless of mood, you create stability in an unstable environment. You begin to trust yourself, and self-trust is the foundation of power. Many men do not trust themselves. They promise change and break it. They set goals and abandon them. They commit publicly and retreat privately. Over time, this erodes internal authority. They stop believing their own words, but relentless discipline rebuilds that authority. When you say you will train, and you train. When you say you will study, and you study. When you say you will improve, and you improve. Your mind begins to accept your commands as law. That is sovereignty. Without support, excuses become more tempting. You can blame circumstances. You can blame lack of resources. You can blame absence of guidance, and no one will challenge you. But discipline removes blame from the equation. It says, regardless of what I lack, I will execute what I can. this mentality transforms scarcity into strength. Limited resources force creativity. Limited support forces independence. Limited recognition forces internal validation. Relentless discipline turns limitations into leverage. There is also a psychological transformation that occurs when you operate this way. You begin to detach from immediate results, because without support, progress often feels invisible. No one notices your growth. No one comments on your improvement. No one highlights your consistency. So you learn to work without reward. This is rare. Most people require feedback to sustain effort. They need to see rapid outcomes. They need visible signs of advancement. But the disciplined man understands that results are delayed. He trains in obscurity. He builds in silence. He sharpens skills without announcing them. Because he understands something crucial. Visible dominance is born from invisible repetition. Repetition that no one applauded. Repetition that no one supervised. Repetition that no one acknowledged. Discipline also strengthens emotional control. When you maintain structure regardless of internal chaos, you teach your mind that emotions do not dictate action. Fear may appear, you still move. Doubt may surface, you still execute. Fatigue may arrive, you adjust, but you do not abandon. Over time, this creates psychological resilience. You stop panicking when motivation fades. You stop collapsing when enthusiasm dips. You understand that consistency outperforms intensity, and consistency is built through relentless discipline. Another shift occurs in how you perceive time. The unsupported man cannot afford impulsive gratification. He cannot waste months waiting for perfect conditions. He cannot delay action until someone joins him. So he becomes patient but active. He works daily toward long-term positioning. He does not chase shortcuts for quick validation. He builds foundations, because when you are alone, shortcuts are risky. There is no one to absorb your mistakes. Discipline reduces unnecessary risk. It strengthens preparation. It sharpens execution. It makes you predictable to yourself and unpredictable to others. People who lack discipline are volatile. They surge and disappear. They commit and withdraw. They promise and hesitate. But the disciplined man becomes steady, and steadiness is intimidating, because while others are inconsistent, he accumulates. Skill accumulates. Strength accumulates. Knowledge accumulates. Reputation accumulates, all quietly. Relentless self-discipline is not glamorous. It does not attract immediate admiration. In fact, during the early stages, it looks ordinary. Routine, boring, repetitive, but within that repetition, transformation is occurring. Your threshold for discomfort expands. Your tolerance for pressure increases. Your reliance on external motivation decreases. You begin to realize that you are not waiting for ideal circumstances. You are manufacturing capability regardless of circumstance. This is what separates those who survive isolation from those who are shaped by it. Without discipline, isolation breeds stagnation. With discipline, isolation breeds dominance. And when a man has governed himself through long periods of obscurity, without applause, without reassurance, without support, he emerges structured, sharpened, and controlled in ways that emotional enthusiasm alone could never produce conclusion. So what have we uncovered? Succeeding with zero support is not about proving people wrong. It is about removing the need for them to be right. When you are alone, you discover who you are without applause. When you are unsupported, you discover how strong your foundation truly is. When you are unseen, you discover whether your ambition survives in silence. Isolation becomes power when you stop interpreting it as rejection. Emotional self-sufficiency becomes strength when you stop outsourcing belief. Strategic silence becomes leverage when you realize observation outperforms noise. Relentless self-discipline becomes your empire when no one else is building it for you. In The Prince, power was never described as comfortable. It was described as controlled, calculated, independent, and that is the transformation you undergo when you rise without support. You stop needing to be understood. You stop needing to be encouraged. You stop needing to be accompanied. You become self-governed. There is a different aura around a man who built himself in silence. He does not argue loudly. He does not reveal quickly. He does not depend easily, because he knows something others do not. He survived the phase where no one believed in him, and that phase did not weaken him. It refined him. If you are in that phase right now, understand this. The silence is not your enemy. The loneliness is not your limitation. The lack of support is not your verdict. It is your training ground. History does not remember those who were constantly reassured. It remembers those who remained disciplined when no one was watching. It remembers those who calculated when others reacted. It remembers those who built internal authority before external recognition arrived. When you succeed with zero support, you no longer fear abandonment. You no longer fear doubt. You no longer fear standing alone. And once a man stops fearing isolation, he becomes difficult to control, difficult to intimidate, and impossible to manipulate. That is not just success, that is sovereignty.